joined right now by our friend, defense attorney Adam Thompson. Hey, Adam, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. First of all, I want to ask you about this. We had Alveda King on earlier, and the NAACP has said that this verdict is nothing more than a modern-day lynching. You have Jesse Jackson saying that Trayvon Martin will be up there with Emmett Till and Medgar Evers. You have the prosecutor, Angela Corey, on Headline News today, when asked to describe George Zimmerman in one word, calls him a murderer. What's your response to this verdict aftermath?
Well, I think it's reckless conduct. I think it really is a huge slap in the face to our jury system, which was given the opportunity to work in this case. A jury was chosen of impartial individuals to review the facts and evidence of the case and come back with a verdict they found fair and just under the circumstances. They obviously took a long time doing this, over the better part of 15 hours, reviewing all the different evidence they had, and they came back with the verdict that really did represent what the evidence presented was. I wasn't surprised that the prosecution would have sour grapes, because they tried a highly publicized case and they came out on the short end of the stick, and they looked bad during the presentation. As I said on your show many times before, they dropped the ball, their witnesses went in, they ended up being turned into defense witnesses, expert witnesses were incompetent and ill-prepared, and the long and short of it was a complete debacle. The defense did a brilliant job. They brought out the facts that they needed to, and they really established that George Zimmerman did have a viable self-defense claim, and the jury believed it. And that should be how it ends. The jury heard the facts. They have a verdict. To now go on to another whole level of, well, let's keep it going. Let's now see if there's a federal case that can be brought, and now put him up there with the biggest people in civil rights history. It's just bringing this too much into the forefront when it shouldn't be.
Absolutely. And it's one thing for Jesse Jackson to do it, but for and even for Eric Holder to say we're looking into it, but for the prosecuting attorneys to go on a TV show and call him a coward and say the proof is in the pudding, he didn't take the stand, and he's a murderer. I mean, I've never seen anything like this.
Again, that's also very reckless behavior, because particularly as an attorney, you know what the rights of a criminal jury trial process are. Everyone has the right to make a decision to either testify or not testify. If you choose not to, you have a constitutional protection not to testify and incriminate yourself. You could sit there and just say, I think the prosecution failed to do its job. They didn't meet its standard and burden of proof, so I'm going to sit here and not testify.
Right.
I think they didn't do what they had to do. And that's the end of it. To say that someone's a coward for exercising their rights, people have to remember these are rights that protect all of us. This is how innocent people stay out of jail. If you take away these rights, they'll slowly erode for everybody. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of different protests out there where all of a sudden, now guess what? Let's force people to testify at trials.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is insane. We're talking to Adam Thompson, defense attorney here on the Steve Malzberg Show. But going back to Eric Holder, he didn't just say we're investigating, even though they've been investigating since day one, and the FBI, as part of that investigation, has already found nothing to conclude that there was racism or racial intent or anything that would meet the standard of a federal civil rights prosecution. But today, Eric Holder, I don't know if you're aware of this, speaking before a Delta Sigma Beta, which I believe is a very large, prestigious fraternity of black women, said that called the shooting an unnecessary shooting death, and said that I share your concern over the verdict. He said the Justice Department shares your concern over the verdict, and I share your concern over the verdict. So much in the manner of Angela Corey, he's not saying I accept the verdict.
And that's reckless. I mean, I will give it to President Obama, who at least came out and said the jury has spoken, respect the verdict, let's have peace and calm, and everyone move on. This is when you need real leadership to step up and say, listen, we all don't agree with outcomes of jury trials. There's always going to be different people that fall on different sides of the verdict. But, Does that mean you go and riot in the street and cause harm or violence against others? No. First Amendment rights are great. You want to protest, protest. You want to speak out, you want to blog, you want to write about it, put signs up, do all of that. And I encourage it because good discourse and dialogue is how we all learn and grow and prevent cases like this from happening in the future. But to take it to a level of violence, to spruce violence from an incident that involves violence.
Right. Well, nobody that I've heard is well, I shouldn't say that. Tweets that I've seen certainly have threatened and urged this kind of thing. Even implications from which giant wide receiver who dances in the end zone?
Cruz.
Yeah, Cruz has said that the hood, it'll only be less than a year before the hood catches up to George Zimmerman. I mean, these outrage. One player for the Atlanta Falcons said that all the jurors should go home and kill themselves. I mean, just outrageous stuff. But nobody that I've heard has certainly called for any violence. In fact, quite the opposite. But it's just a disgusting situation. And people say, like I said before, what a tragedy, what a horrible tragedy for Trayvon Martin and his family and his parents. I can't imagine. But people should also say, well, how would you feel if your son was acquitted of murder, found not guilty, and then the prosecutors and the lawyers and the media all went on TV and said he's a murderer?
Exactly. I mean, both families have been through it. I couldn't fathom the death of a child. I have a 3.5-year-old myself named Jack, who I love more than anything, and I couldn't even put in my mind him having any kind of harm.
Of course not.
You know what I'm saying? So everyone out there should feel for the Martin family. Everyone should have their thoughts for the Martin family and hope that they find peace and can move on. But the Zimmerman family, imagine having your son facing life imprisonment.
Yeah.
Right? And the rest of his life, even after this. Look at every other notorious case that has been in the press in the last 10
And you know
years.
what? You know what, Adam? And the whole family is living under threats, too. Listen, I'm up against the end of the show. Thank you, my friend. This isn't the end of our relationship. This will be the beginning here on the show. We'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. And take care.
Thanks.
All right, take care. Adam Thompson, ladies and gentlemen, defense attorney.